This is for Math 3, College Algebra, Practice Exam 3, number 38, because we didn't have time to discuss it in class. The question is, use completing the square to get the standard form of this equation and identify the conic. Okay, I actually think it's more important to identify the conic first, because then we'll know what the standard equation looks like. So everything's on one side, and you'll notice that we are missing one of the squared terms. We're missing y squared. We know that when we're missing the y squared, that implies that this is a parabola, because only one of the variables is squared for the parabola. All the others, the ellipse and the hyperbola, and the circle, which is a type of ellipse, they all have both the x's and the y squared contained in them. Okay, now that we know that it's a parabola, we can write the standard form and then get our given equation in the standard form. So standard form for the parabola is y equals a times x minus h parentheses squared plus k. So the goal is to take the given equation that's given to us in messed up form, this guy right here, complete the square as instructed, and then write the equation carefully in the form we just wrote in the cloud, the parabola form. Okay, so let's gather in parentheses the x's and the y's. We have x squared plus 16x, close that parenthesis. And now the y over here, let's go ahead and make that a minus and parenthesis y. Now look, that's a positive 61, but I put a negative sign out in the front of the parenthesis, so I have to write this as a negative 61. If I don't do that, I'll be in trouble. Actually, I don't think I should have done that at all, because now I realize I only have to complete the square in x, not in y, because there is no squared term in y. So I'm just going to remove what I just did and start over. Okay, parenthesis. X squared plus 16x, then the minus y plus 61 equals 0. Okay. Now, let's start it in the standard form. Get it to look like this guy here. So we're going to move y to the other side, and we will have parenthesis x squared plus 16x, parenthesis, and then plus 61 equals positive y. I just added y to both sides. Now I'm going to turn it backwards. Y equals parenthesis x squared plus 16x, close your parenthesis, plus 61. All right, so I just turned it backwards. Now I've got to complete the square for this guy right here. So bring down the y equals parenthesis x squared plus 16x. Okay, here it comes. I'm going to add bracket 1/2 times the coefficient of x, which is positive. Make sure you have the sign right. Positive 16, close parenthesis, close bracket squared. And then I'm going to subtract exactly the same amount. Bracket 1/2 parenthesis 16 parenthesis bracket squared. Close the parenthesis, and now bring down the plus 61. Do you see that we've done nothing? We added bracket squared, we subtracted bracket squared. We did nothing. Now we're going to carefully pull the negative bracket squared out to the very back. But look, if there had been a number in front of the parenthesis after y equals, we would have had to pull a factor of that number in the front or the negative sign along with it. This is an easy problem. It doesn't have anything outside of the parenthesis. So it's just y equals parenthesis x squared plus 16x plus bracket, what's half of 16? 8. Positive 8, bracket squared, close parenthesis, because we already pulled that dude out, plus 61. Now we pulled him out. He's minus bracket 8, bracket squared. Okay, now we're ready to factor this part because we've completed the square. We're using a formula. We don't always mention it, but there is a formula that we use. It is the formula that says capital A plus capital B parenthesis squared equals a squared plus 2 times a times b plus b squared. That is the formula we're using here. We don't mention it all the time, but that is what's happening in my next step. So you won't think it's just some kind of voodoo. This is y equals parenthesis. Okay, it's going to be x plus whatever's in that bracket, including the sign, 8 parentheses squared. Okay, so what I did was I got the equation to look like the right side, the expression in the parentheses looks like the right side, so now I can replace it with the left side, x plus 8 squared. Okay, don't forget to bring down your plus 61 and your minus 8 squared. But what's 8 squared? 8 squared is 64. So this is y equals parentheses x plus 8 parentheses squared. And that's plus 61 minus 64. So 61 minus 64 is negative 3. So we've got y equals parentheses x plus 8 parentheses squared. And then a minus 3. Let's put a box around it because we now have our completed standard form. Y equals a parentheses x minus h squared minus 3k plus k. It's just that a is 1 in this case. I'll write it down here. Y equals a parentheses x minus h parentheses squared plus k. That was the standard form. And you can see how a is equal to the invisible 1, h is equal to negative 8, and k is equal to negative 3. But I boxed the thing that they asked for. They asked for two things. They asked for identification of the conic, and I identified and boxed it up here. It's a parabola. And then they asked for the standard form, and I did that here. And we are finished. Oh, they also said use completing the square, so I could not use a different method. Okay, that's it. Practice test finished.